Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm John Connors. I'm your host, and I'm also the head instructor of Connors Martial Arts in Norwood. We teach Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, and mixed martial arts. Come down, give us reach out to us, come on in, and we'll help you find your inner badass that's waiting to be discovered. And I'm here with Dan Robin, my co-host. How you doing, Dan?
Good. How you doing, John?
Dan, have you found your inner badass yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Found.
Yeah.
Check.
Found. Yeah, it's found. I don't need any more.
You stop looking.
Yeah. Yeah. I found him a while ago, and now I don't pay any attention. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So what's going on?
Not much.
Not
Not
much.
much today. I'm feeling
You're
quiet and
sub 7, I sense.
I would today, scale of 1 to 10, I'd have to go 7.
I could have swore you were going to say 6.9
No,
or 6.875.
it was a solid 7.
Huh.
I'm just feeling a little quieter today. I think maybe this will be the podcast for quiet contemplation.
Quiet Dan.
Yeah, just quiet. And maybe
We'll do an hour of just sitting here quietly.
the listeners might
appreciate
they might
that.
not want talk the whole time. They might want this one podcast to just
That's funny. That's
some
very
silence.
avant-garde.
Some silence.
A podcast of complete silence. What do you think, Dimitri? Did that work? Have you ever heard of this?
We'll just call it quiet contemplation.
Yeah. Who was that? There was some goofy musician, right? What is his name? You're more sophisticated than me. John Cage, where he would come out and for a minute he would sit at the piano and do nothing, and the pretentious audience would sit there after they paid $500 for their seats and go, "That was amazing." Yeah.
Yeah,
I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm not more sophisticated than you,
Oh, thank God.
so I don't know who that is. But
You don't know who that
is?
is?
Yeah, I remember. Who was it that there was some comedian that would come out and like sit in silence and like see how long he could do it?
Oh, that was
Probably Andy
Kaufman.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Like he zipped himself up in a sleeping bag and was just didn't
did he?
come out the whole time.
That's
Stuff
really
like that.
funny. He did the one with the book, right?
Right, he just started reading from the book. Yeah.
No, he had a book, and then he had a tape recording. And he goes, I got 2 different bits. I could do the book, or I could do the tape recording bit. I think you'd like the tape recording bit. I really want to do the book. Can I do the? And then they would cheer, and he'd do the book, and he'd just start reading some boring literature, and it would go on. People would giggle, laugh, and they'd wait till people start booing, and they'd and then they'd go, "You want the tape? You want the tape?" And they'd start screaming, chanting, "Tape, tape, tape!" And he played the tape, and it was a tape of him reading the same book. Yeah, pretty good.
So we've got ideas for the show.
I think
got a
we have
few
our
ideas.
next 3 podcasts planned out now.
One silence, then the book, and then the tape recording of the book, of the reading.
Should be cool. So what do you got going on this weekend?
Nothing. My family's in town.
Get your family.
So that's good. The kids are all back. So there's that.
When you say your family, you mean your children?
Yeah, because they're off
okay.
at school. So they're all coming home. So we'll have a full house. So that's nice.
What is it? Is it spring break or something?
Nah.
No, they just happen to be home.
Yeah, my daughter's touring. She sings with a chorus, and they're toured through Canada, and now their last stop is in Boston.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I have a busy weekend as well. We have Fight to Win up in Tingsboro, Mass.
Right.
Professional jiu-jitsu matches. So Tyler King, brown belt world champion, IBJJF world champion, is competing. He has a match against this guy, Nick Rodriguez.
As a new black belt.
Tyler's a black belt. This guy is a really good no-gi competitor. I don't know what his rank is, but I think he was a collegiate wrestler of some high-level skill. And the guy, I believe he got a bronze in ADCC East Coast, and then I think he won the West Coast or something. So the guy's hot right now. Everyone's talking about how amazing this guy is. So it would be a big, big win for Tyler if he could pull this off.
Right, and we've talked before on this podcast. Tyler really shows up to compete.
He's a great competitor.
Yeah.
I can't exaggerate, Dan. I wish I had taken a video of him sitting in the chair before his finals match for the World Championships. You know, I thought we should be measuring his vitals. He looked like a melting snowman, and then he just pops up like a, you know, horror movie. What is that? Like Jason. He just comes back from the dead and goes out there and just and gets it done, and he wins handily.
Yeah.
He didn't even eke out a victory. I was like, if he can somehow hang on, and then he just dominated. He did great, and the guy was good that he beat too. So he can bring it, man.
Right.
And he's
so
a
even a
big
match like this, where you have a guy that's all the talk is about the other guy, and you
Yeah.
just can't count Tyler out against
Absolutely
anybody.
not. I keep telling him he's in a great position. You know, it's like Miracle on Ice story. You know what I mean? The other guy's the Soviet Union, and he's the American team. And it's a huge opportunity for him. And he earned the opportunity. So I actually sent him the video, that Miracle speech. You're familiar with that?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get goosebumps when I listen to it. But that's exactly where he's at. So that'll be awesome.
And we got other competitors from your gym, right?
And Maria's competing. Maria Kipreos,
Right.
one of our former guests here on the podcast. So she has a match as well. So that'll be pretty cool, too.
Does she get to know anything about her opponent? Or
I think she's
Is it
seen
film?
him. She might have competed against her and beat her a couple of years ago, I think. And she's seen him some of her matches. So, yeah. I think she's doing a gi match. Tyler's no gi. So they'll do great. It's awesome. And then Saturday night we're down to Cage Titans in Plymouth for mixed martial arts, and we have Ebrahim Aziz, the gas station superhero.
right? For anyone who doesn't remember, he was on the news for fighting off someone who was trying to rob the
Trying to
gas
rob him.
station. Yeah, and
It's an awesome video. The thing went
Right.
viral. I don't know. Probably millions of people have seen it. And this guy comes up and starts punching him, and he hops over the counter, dives on the guy like spider monkey, you know,
the thing
like a fruit bat.
that
He
you
swoops
might
down
not
on.
be able to tell just from the video. One thing you definitely can't tell is how nice a guy he is.
Very
know.
respectful. I mean, he's immigrated from Egypt, and he's the nicest, most respectful, hardworking, honest guy. And he wouldn't have fought the guy except the guy started punching him in the face. So
yeah,
he just
that's what he
reacted.
said, right? He said he
Yeah.
would have handed over the money.
He would have handed over a couple bucks to the guy, but the guy thought he had an easy.
Another
mark.
thing you might not be able to tell is that he's not a big guy, Ebrahim.
He's I think 125 pounds, soaking wet, like just in street clothes. So the other guy, I'm sure, was.
If Tyler was behind the counter,
I don't think the guy would have been punching Tyler. No,
he would have just gone to another gas station.
right?
I think.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was just a great story of a guy getting his comeuppance and a great testimony to the training. You know?
totally. He had to be outweighed by at least 60 pounds. The other guy had to be at least 185, if not heavier. I don't know. And he choked the guy unconscious and
Right.
held him for the police to come. And everyone went away. And the robber, had a little mouse under his eye. Abraham had a little mouse in his eye, so nobody got injured. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's a little example for, if there's still the voices out there that say the training won't work in real
Yeah,
life or
there
in
you
the
go.
street. It completely worked, right?
I tell you, that argument is so annoying when they go, well, you sports athletes, you sports fighters, that's going to get you in big trouble when you get on the street because you're going to think there's rules and then there's going to be no rules and you're going to be in trouble. It's such nonsense. I mean, there's a sliver of logic to it, but you're also training against resisting opponents all the time, against live people going full speed. It's the perfect feedback to master. The only way you can master anything. And then these numbnuts are doing no live training, but, since they're doing the Mo eye poke, they think they're going to be okay in a live situation.
Right. I don't know anyone that's done the live training that then feels that it would not work in the street or in another set of rules.
I mean, if you
because-
go on YouTube, you can see video after video of people with live training just kicking the shit out of
Demolishing
somebody.
people, yeah.
And the people without the live training not doing so well.
Right. And we've said before, there's a sliver of truth, but it is a different
There is.
scenario. You're going to have different adrenaline rush. You're going to have different
Right.
things in your way that you're not used to, bar stools or something tripping you.
Well, I think I saw one video where the guy's training worked against him, but the guy was way out of line. It looked like, I thought it said it was in Brazil. It was some kind of traffic altercation. And the guy gets out and he's being very aggressive. And they said he was a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu competitor or something. And the other guy pulls out a handgun and the guy still goes at him.
Yeah.
And he gets shot. I mean, so that's just somebody who's just way out of line. Like, he was being aggressive and somebody pulls out a handgun. You think
That's
you're going to
the end of
tackle
it,
him.
yeah.
That's just silly. Yeah. So that's the one time it sort of worked against the guy.
And it's true that it's not magic. You could still lose, like something.
Absolutely.
If someone's way bigger than you or way more accustomed to fighting, it's not magic. It's not a guarantee.
Right.
But those are the only things that I think are accurate about doubting, the effectiveness of training, that it's not a guarantee and that it's a little bit different. But this sweeping statement is where they get off base, where they start saying it's not going to work at all.
Yeah,
that's
that's people whistling past the graveyard because they've invested in themselves in something that's probably not going to work. So they're just trying to convince themselves and anyone to listen to them that they're on the right track.
I think way back when, I think on the podcast I gave this example, way back when, maybe our second podcast, something like that. But I had someone I barely knew any jiu-jitsu. I knew a little bit. But one of these guys mounted, like I took him down and mounted. So I'm kneeling.
Where are you, Dan?
At an old karate school.
Okay.
And it was an instructor there, not the head instructor, but an instructor. And so I kind of
at a place where they didn't have a lot of live training, is what you're saying.
They had none.
Okay, none.
And,
Zero.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't want to rip on the school. Like I said, it's good. They're great with kids, and they're all kinds of good things about it. But nice guy that ran it. But I took the instructor down. I didn't even have much skill, but I think I was just a little more physical than him, and so I took him down.
You're a pretty physical guy.
Well, not in your gym, but like there. So I took him down and I just had him. I mounted him, and he gave me this cocky look from staring up from. So if people don't mount, it means he's on his back. I'm over on top of him, staring down at him.
You're sitting on his stomach with your knees on either side of his
torso. Knees in his armpits, basically. Yeah. And he looks up at me with like a cocky look from that, and he tries to get out and he can't. And then he looks up with a cocky look and says, "Now, if we were playing by my rules, there's a lot of things I could do to you from here."
I get you right where I want.
Yeah, so I'm like, I was like, what? So I'm sort of sitting there. The first thought, of course, was like, do you think there's anything I could do to you from here? Nothing. I wonder what I can't think of anything. And then, but so I just sort of said, respect more. I didn't want to sort of rip on him. He was the instructor, and I was kind of new, and so I just said, so like what do you have in mind that you could do to me? Because I doubted him. And he goes, like, for example, and he grabs my hand with his hand, and he like squeezes my thumb like this, like he bends my thumb in like this painful way.
Yep.
He's like, I could do this, and he's like crushing my thumb.
Yep.
And I'm like, ow. Like, like,
ow.
Yeah, exactly.
That
I'm
was
like,
very
ow, that
effective.
hurt. Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, you could do something that hurts a little bit, but obviously I could, if you did that to me from here.
Right. What
I
if
would
I
smash
elbowed you in the face with
30
all
times.
my weight?
What if I elbow you 30 times in the face
Could
and
have
you
a
can't get
similar
out,
effect. Yeah.
while you're squeezing my thumb? So yeah, but people, that's the experience I have of people that are like, well, this stuff isn't effective. And the whole reason we're talking about it is Ebrahim showed it was effective. He that guy in the gas station wasn't using any rules or
that guy was fighting for his life,
Yeah.
and it didn't go his way. Yeah, that guy was using no rules, and Ebrahim put him asleep.
If anything, I hear the
times.
opposite more often. People that get in an altercation after training and they're like, it felt so easy. It felt really easy.
Yeah, we have a lot of guys there. Scott Miller disarmed some guy with a bat and held him for the cops to come. That was pretty cool. Yeah. And then Jesse McElligott's competing too, down there.
Right.
So we got those two fighters.
Who's Jesse fighting? Dude?
He's fighting a guy named Ron Marshall. So the guy's a really tough guy. more of a striker, I would say, probably than a grappler. That's how I might characterize him. But the guy's obviously has good fighting instinct. He's got good timing, dangerous fighter, and he's a tough guy. Like he seems to be able to absorb a punch and keep coming. And
Jesse's a tough guy too.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great fight. I'm really excited about it. Yeah.
And the one thing you said, like, he's more of a striker than a grappler, but I'm sure, to be clear, again, most people listening know this, but he can grapple too. I'm sure by now they can all do all of it.
Yeah,
The thing that doesn't, as a quick aside for that, I don't understand to this day, it's 2019, the UFC, when they introduce people, they say, a boxer.
Oh, do they say that now?
Yeah, they still say it. They still, like, from the start, they say a kung fu, or like they say their martial art. A wrestler.
I didn't even realize they still say
kickboxer.
that. Yeah.
Like, why? I mean, now it's supposed to be a professional sport. You know what I mean? Picture another sport. Like in basketball, they announce someone like a high jumper. Like, why? You know what I mean? What?
Yeah.
I think.
Well, that was the premise of UFC 1.
When it started, right? It was started.
Yeah.
They want to say a boxer versus a wrestler, and they still do it.
It's almost all wrestlers now, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, they're all MMA fighters now too.
Yeah.
Like, why
but if you went Daniel Cormier, heavyweight champion, wrestler. John Jones, wrestler. The 185 guy. Whitaker, I think he was a wrestler. 170 now is Usman, wrestler. 155, Khabib.
Yeah.
Combat Sambo, wrestler / wrestler. 45, is that Max Holloway?
Yeah. He's less of a wrestler.
Yeah, I don't think he's a wrestler, no.
And then
35 was T.J. Dillashaw, a wrestler, and Henry Cejudo was an Olympic wrestler. Yeah. So they're all wrestlers pretty much, which is pretty cool.
I don't know. It's almost like it makes – I almost wonder if they're trying to appeal to people who think it's still like a boxer versus a wrestler.
Yeah, maybe. I wonder how long they'll hold on to that. It
Who
does
knows?
feel dated.
I mean, if they got rid of it in the last few events, I wouldn't have noticed. But I noticed very recently they were still doing it. Yeah,
I didn't notice that at all. Very funny.
Right,
you know what's that?
Go ahead. I was just saying that's your weekends filled with cornering.
Yeah.
Are you cornering all of them? Or
all of them. And then Sunday I'm going to walk around and see if there's a fight going on someplace that I could corner somebody.
Just to keep
just randomly cornering people. Yeah.
That's a lot of cornering.
Yeah, it'll be good. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. A lot of fun. And Cage Titans, they're both great events. The fight to win, it's like up on a platform. They have these lights. And I was at one event. They had all this smoke going on. It was like a rock concert. And the two fighters go out there, and they're on stage by themselves. It's like watching a play with two guys grappling each other. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think I missed Fight to Win, but wasn't there one in where's the Saturday night event?
That's down in Plymouth Memorial Hall.
Right. I've been there a bunch of times.
That's a great place to watch a fight. And Cage Titans, Mike Polvere, he does an awesome job. Really puts on great events. And the crowd is enthusiastic. I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome.
Right.
We have a good group coming down.
This comes out, it'll all have happened, so we can't encourage people to go down.
If you go down when you're hearing this, it's going to be a little late. So, Tim, what I wanted to talk to you about today is...
Now we can start the podcast.
We'll start the podcast. All the niceties out of the way. Oh, I put out a little snippet from one of the podcasts, like a 2-minute one, about... I think it was that one where I talked about mantras, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm in control. And I got some good feedback. People like that. So the idea was sometimes you get a stress response when you're in a bad position. So I've been researching sort of sports psychology and stress response for many, many, many years because I've had a lot of anxiety before competing in Jiu Jitsu and in wrestling. Not so much in football for some reason. Maybe it's because it's a team sport, but a lot of anxiety. And I said, I got to figure this out because it's just painful. It's miserable, you know. And the first book that seemed scientific to me and had an impact on me was Robert Sapolsky's Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Have you heard of that book?
Nope.
Yeah. It's a big book. So he's like, I mean, it's popular. Like he sold millions and millions. And he's kind of like a celebrity scientist, you know, anthropologist, biologist. You know, he's, yeah, I think he's from Stanford.
So first of all, zebras don't get ulcers.
According to him. But how do you know they don't?
I just
I mean, I guess see, Dan, you think exactly like I think. Skeptical
like
about everything.
Really know, right?
What would you know? You would know if zebras in a zoo got ulcers, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But that being in a zoo is so different than being in the wild. That
seems less stressful in the zoo too. If I was in a zoo, I'm not sure I'd get an ulcer.
I think it'd be different stresses. Right.
Yeah.
I see. But you're kind of in a prison, right? You think but you don't have any lions coming after you.
Right.
If they could understand that, it might be less stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's stressful in its own way.
Yeah.
But so the point of the book, first of all, before you even, I think it's valuable for people that know you to even know you have anxiety, because you seem, two reasons. One is you seem like you wouldn't get anxiety.
Right.
You know, like you seem like, you know, this steady presence that, you know, people might be surprised that you felt anxiety.
Right.
And then two, most people don't mention that they get anxiety. You know, we've talked about it on here a little bit.
There you
but
go.
You know.
That's exactly what I'm leading up to. But
okay.
In what way? What do you mean? Like on here, like when we ask guys, were you nervous about the fight? Very few fighters will admit that they were nervous, right? Yeah.
So I remember Georges St. Pierre. I thought he did everyone a service, but he's a great, all-time great fighter. Maybe the all-time great fighter.
Right.
And he said he would get incredibly anxious before every fight.
I think so. I think he had trouble sleeping before the fights, and maybe he throws up before, something like that. Pretty extreme physical responses to it. Yeah. So anyways, in the book, I guess the implication of the title is that human beings have a sophisticated psychology that zebras don't. So zebras are going to have physical stressors. You know, so if a lion is chasing them, that's stressful. If they don't get enough food and water, that's stressful. But they're not worrying about what their neighbor thinks about them. They're not worrying about what their kids are going to do. You know what I mean? I think humans are the only animals that even care about their grandchildren. I think any other species, they're like, who cares? And I think most species, when their children become adults, most animals, they don't
even care about their own children.
They don't. No.
Right? They'll chase them off or.
Right.
Right.
So humans are very sophisticated and unique in that we can conjure up all kinds of stressors.
Yeah, I mean, there's 100, right? Like your appearance. Animals don't care about their appearance, or
I mean, Dimitri was making fun of my shoes when I came in here, and completely embarrassed me.
And it gave you an ulcer. Yeah, they just don't care about that. Like, even if an animal doesn't look good in its animal way, the zebra doesn't have enough stripes, like it doesn't dwell on it or notice or think about it.
Right, but he doesn't have some other zebra going, you call those stripes? What the hell is that? You look terrible.
Right. And
is that that's what you're going out with? Those stripes? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know zebra, but I'm pretty sure they don't do that.
And
I also think, like the stress of like a lion attack is almost more immediate, right? They're like,
completely immediate.
Wait a minute, I smell lion. They sort of don't walk around like, oh boy, this place is crawling with lions. Like, you know.
That's exactly it. There's a danger, and then it pretty much gets resolved in about 30 seconds, either for good or for bad, and then it's over. They either get away and it's done, or they die, you know?
So is that the premise of the book, that we have these things that can eat away at us, and they sort of don't get resolved in 30 seconds?
Right, and he's saying they're coming from some of the same physical mechanisms. So this is where I learned about the autonomic nervous system, which from the Greek means self-ruling. See that Harvard education pays off. Like occasionally,
it just finally paid off. Just now,
I can understand the etymology of a word. So this autonomic, so it's working automatically to control your heart rate and your breathing and all these things, so we don't have to think about it. So we can sit here and have an awesome podcast, so we don't have to think, breathe now, beat your heart. So our autonomic nervous system does all these automatic things. It has two other parts of it, which are the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is what excites you. So if you see a predator bang, that thing goes off in a hard way, and all these different things happen in your body. Your heart rate increases, your breathing gets faster and shallower, the blood leaves your organs and goes out into your muscles so you can flee or fight, whichever one you need to do, and you stop digesting food, your reproductive system shuts down, so all the resources marshal away from anything else except for fighting and fleeing. And the parasympathetic is your relaxation response, and that sort of mitigates the excitement, so that'll maybe kick in later when you're free from the lion and you're sitting there. So it's all happening in your nervous system, and it's all happening out of your control automatically. So when I started to think about that, I realized, oh, this is just physical processes that are happening. And unfortunately, in our culture, we have all this cultural meaning attached to anxiety and fear, so to speak, and stress response. So something happens, I have a stress response. As a man, as a fighter, I might be thinking, I can't believe I'm feeling like this. I'm a chicken shit. I'm a coward. And then you Dan, would say, John, how you feeling? I'm like, I'm fine. Okay. I'm not nervous. What are you talking about? And I don't want to admit it because of all the shame that I have, because of all the social baggage that goes with it, you know.
Right.
And that was a revelation for me, just to make that distinction, that like I don't have to necessarily feel shame for being afraid or having anxiety or fear. It's just a physical thing, like being hungry or thirsty or tired. You know, it's something happening in my nervous system. It doesn't necessarily have to have all this other meaning. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost a negative feedback loop. So if I have anxiety and I feel ashamed for having the anxiety, it makes the anxiety worse. And then I have more shame about it and so forth. So it could, really spiral out of hand in a sort of a negative loop. But if I realize, no, it's a physical thing that's happening to prepare my body to flee or to fight, and I don't assign it any social meaning, any cultural meaning, then I first of all interrupt that negative feedback loop. You know what I mean? So that's what I got out of reading that book, and I thought that was huge. You know?
Yeah. In fighting, there's a parallel thing too, or I think it's parallel. See if you agree with me. It was for flinching, for stand-up fighting, where there'd be a flinch response. I had a pretty strong flinch response when I started, like, and not exaggerated. I wasn't, but it was like, I would just like blink.
So somebody goes to punch,
I'd blink
you'd
my
blink
eyes
and turn your head.
And
or
say
something.
part of boxing and stand-up fighting is don't flinch. Like keep your eye on, keep your eyes open. Don't.
Right.
And it was just an instinct. Like I'd be like,
exactly.
And at first it feels like, and I'd be sitting there thinking, I swear to you, I'm not scared of getting hit. Like I'm not flinching in fear, because I'd flinch just as much if it was real light, like real light sparring coming at my face. Though I'd kind of flinch. And then I got to talking. It was Mark Dellagrotte actually, who was saying he would train to not flinch. Like it's something you just develop. You get more used to it. And I think he was saying he would actually do things to control his flinching. Like look up into the shower water or something and not flinch. Or, he would do things that would train it. And then the same thought process you were talking about, it became like, it's just a thing that's going off.
It's actually like, a natural response that your body has evolved.
To not get hit in the eye.
Yeah. It's allowed your ancestors to survive and reproduce and create you. Right. God bless them. We wouldn't have you here on this podcast. And so thank God they had a good flinch response.
But that's all. Because I used to feel like I had to defend, like I'd be defensive. Like I'm not scared of getting hit.
So your natural flinch response, you would interpret as a weakness that you have. Like there's something unmanly about you or something. Yeah.
And like I said, I felt like I had to go out of my way to be like, but it's not that I'm scared of getting hit. I'm not.
You just reminded me of this famous defensive lineman from the Dallas Cowboys way back in the 60s, maybe. Bob Lilly. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
And he would do exactly what you're saying, the flinch response. So he would take his hand and he would hit it like right above his eye like this and keep his eyes open the whole time. So what he would do is he found that when he engaged with the offensive lineman, he would keep his eyes wide open, not blink, and then he could make the appropriate move to tackle the runner. And a lot of people, when they engage somebody,
At
they
the
would
moment of-
instinctively
at the
close.
moment of contact,
At the moment of impact, they would close their eyes for a split second, and they would lose track of the play. And he trained himself to lose that flinch response, much like crew Mark Dellagrotte was talking about. So that's pretty interesting. Yeah, so that's another example of your natural evolved protective mechanism revealing itself in you feeling bad about it. You saying that it shows a weakness in you when it's actually a protective mechanism, you know?
Right.
But just realizing that, it makes you feel better about it. You don't have that shame and all that baggage, you know? So that was a big thing I got out of that book. So now I would say to people who are feeling nervous or anxiety to use different language, to say I'm having a stress response. And you need a certain stress response. You know, there's like a level of stress that's optimal. If it's not high enough, it's not good to go into a fight with not enough stress response. If it's too high, then that's bad. So you got to find that sort of sweet spot for whatever activity.
Right.
Like podcasting, we want to have a pretty significant stress response.
We do.
What are you thinking? When I was talking, I saw you looking over there, and you have a funny idea in your head. Something was going on.
I thought of something, and then I killed it. I can't believe it. You actually saw what I was thinking.
I saw something developing over there. Yeah,
it was. I was gonna say, or like peeing your pants. It's
perfectly natural.
Perfectly. You see bears about to fight, and they pee right on the ground, right?
Dan, and shitting your pants.
Yeah,
those are real phenomena. So when you have an extreme stress response, that's what I said. You evacuate everything, because we don't need to worry about that stuff anymore. We gotta fight or flee. So peeing your pants, shitting your pants, this is all natural. It's actually a positive evolved trait that's going to help you survive.
That said, I still feel like I'm not sure I've evolved enough to not be embarrassed if I peed my pants.
What if you shit your pants?
No, that one I'm fine with. But now you got as a quick aside, you also got a little insight into what's going on in my head, like while you're talking, that you just spotted at that time, like that's.
I think I've seen that in a scene in a movie where some character like peed themselves when they're under stress, and it's kind of a horrifying scene. I wish I could remember what movie it was. Somebody was menacing somebody, and that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times, especially now with all these Netflix shows. I'm sure.
Right. So that's a big thing I got out of that book. I got something else out of it, too, in that he described all these different horrible experiments they did with rats, which are probably better experiments than with people, in that all these psychology experiments we've heard about, how many of them turn out to be flawed and not accurate?
Well, when I was in graduate school, I became pretty strongly against animal research for that reason. Like there would be these horrific studies, and it would be like, they'd be like, and another way this was proven is, and then some ungodly torture, like, and it would be like,
yeah, we put this
already proved it.
Yeah.
Like I just read 3 studies that proved it.
Yeah.
What kind of maniac is like, it was literally in my intro to physiology, they took a dog's head off and attached it to another dog. That's legit. What? Like they tried to see how long they could keep it alive.
Professor McElligott doing that?
Professor Frankenstein. It was sort of that's legit. Like that's you
horrible.
Could look that up, I'm sure, if you.
Wow.
Someone didn't believe me, and they found the article. I'm like, what is going on? And it was like, we found these interesting. It's like, who also approved it? Like there's usually an approval process, right?
Apparently a cat person.
Yeah, I guess. And then there'd be like, we started clipping fingers off a chimp. Like that was another one. There was so for the rats. I mean, rats. It's all
right,
bets
Dan.
are
Let me get to my rat experiments.
So
that are
back
in that
to
book.
the rat.
Actually, the fact that you prefaced the story with
now
these,
it's not as bad.
Not at all. Oh my gosh.
I saw one with a rat where they put the digestive system.
Oh my god.
Out through the side of the rat and then through another rat, and then back into the first rat.
Oh my god.
So yeah, the lovely experiments.
What are these 6th graders doing this?
I don't know if that still goes on anymore, but that was the 90s, right? That wasn't that long ago.
That was happening when you were in grad school.
That's when I was reading about it in the 90s. Yeah, and I think the dog one was from the 70s, but
I think the book why zebras don't get ulcers is from the 90s. And I think he's had a couple editions of it. So
the rat experiment.
Rat experiment. Put a rat in a cage, and they electrify the floor of the cage occasionally. And they test his blood, and lo and behold, his blood shows signs of having a stress response. So increased cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and I don't know, you probably would know better
So
than me.
they're zapping, right?
They're zapping the bottom of the cage. Not enough to kill him, but enough to at least annoy him, you know? I don't know how painful it is. Scare him or something. And then they could tell by his blood that he's had a stress response. And I'm sure they could observe him and he'd act differently too, but that's what they're doing. So then what they do is, I think there's a few different experiments. One is where they vary the length and duration, the duration of the zapping. And what happens is, if it's unpredictable of how much zapping you're getting, it's more stressful. So in other words, if you know that every 4 minutes I get a 10-second zap and it's completely regular, the body can somehow adapt a little bit to that, and it's less stressful than if it's completely random, where it's
you just never know when it's coming or how long it's going to last.
Right. So
what
what they're getting,
even for a rat, it's more stressful.
Yeah. For an animal, So unpredictability stimulates a stress response. So when you can't predict something that's going to happen, you have more of a stress response. And then the other one was control. If you don't have a sense of control, you can get more of a stress response. So they have 2 rats in a cage with a wall that divides them, and so it's one floor. So the 2 rats are getting the exact same physical stimulus, but one rat has a little switch that he's learned that he can go over, hit that, and it shuts the current off, and the floor stops shocking them. So then they measure the stress response of the blood of both of the rats, and the one that has the switch, he doesn't suffer as much as the other one, but they're getting the same physical response. So it's this.
They're shocked the same amount.
Exact same amount. It's the
one
same
that can
floor.
Control it is less stressed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a sense of control and a sense of predictability lessen the stress response.
Right. So with something like competing, there's always going to be that sense of you don't know the outcome. On the one hand, so there's going to be some stress because you don't know what's going to happen. But I would guess there's ways to use this to your advantage as well.
Well, the more experience you have, the more you compete in a certain environment, it starts to feel more predictable. So the unpredictability factor goes down. And then, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because this is how I came up with that mantra of I'm in control. So that little 2-minute clip I put up was like a mantra that if you're in a bad position, the bottom amount, and you're struggling to get out, and you're starting to feel a stress response, what I would say in my head is, the first one I came up with was, I'm in control, I'm in control. And then I varied it slightly, and I said, I'm in control. I emphasized the fact that it was me, not the opponent who's sitting on top of me that's in control. So, I was probably going to do one of those thumb moves to whoever's on top of me, you know what I mean? But I'm in control. I'm in control. So I came up with a mantra based on the research I read in this book. I said, well, if control is one of the real stimulators of stress, let's try to just attack that and just convince ourselves that we're in control. And Dan, that seems to work for me. And one of the guys, I think Mike Segala in the gym, he said, yeah, I tried that the other day, and it worked. That was pretty good. I'm in control. I'm in control. So that's basically where I wanted to get to, was the origin of that mantra, how I came up with that.
Right. And it's, a lot of these seem, the thing is, it sounds weird, but I forget to do them. Like I have to be better at remembering to do a mantra. Like it sounds strange.
Dan, I forget to do everything that I advise people to do. It's crazy. Yeah.
All right. So that's normal, I guess, because
I think so. Yeah.
Because I'll try something like you said earlier, even before this mantra, which sounds like you refined what you used to do of saying, I have an unstoppable guard pass when you're trying to pass.
Yeah.
I was like, I could see that helping you, just feel a little more confidence, a little more energy. And especially in like a lot of competitions, maybe all of them, tend to be games of inches, right? So if you're a little quicker,
Absolutely.
a little faster, everything changes.
I remember one time years ago, I was training with another black belt, one of our buddies, and we were both in great shape, I guess, because I started to pass his guard. And Dan, I think for 30 minutes, I was trying to pass, and he was defending his guard nonstop. And then finally, in the 30th minute, boom, I passed. And I didn't really do anything different, but it was an accumulation of pressure and so forth, and it happened. But if I was doubting myself, you know what I mean, thinking, I don't know if this is going to work, I would have never passed, you know?
Yeah. So that's a practical thing, like, because I've said before, there's guys in the gym with great guards. Some of them are not, they're blue belts or, and I'll try a few times, and then my brain starts going like, you can't pass this guy's guard.
Right.
Like, and it starts feeling like a waste of time.
Yeah.
You try the same thing 2-3 times, and they easily defend it. You're like, well, it's not going to work.
You know why?
I can't.
Because you're an intelligent person. That's what an intelligent brain and nervous system does. They try something, and they give it a certain amount of effort, and they go, this doesn't seem to be working. What else should we do? You know?
So you're saying, in particular to jiu-jitsu, but I assume it applies to other things, it like keep at it, right? And just maybe you get that 1 inch. Maybe you never pass, of course, but
right. It depends. I think it's helpful if we can override our natural productive instincts, so to speak.
Yeah.
I know we don't like the word instincts here, but yeah, this stuff that's hardwired into us. Yeah, maybe we try to game that system for the moment when we're passing the guard. Definitely. Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable for you to go. Yeah, I mean you need to be a little unreasonable at times for sure.
Right, because there's I'll never get out of here. There's another thing, like someone on side control or mount, and you're just like, I can't get out. I'll never.
That reminds me of one of the other rat experiments. So they put a rat in like a rain barrel or something, right? And there's no way for him to get out. So basically, the average rat will swim around the edge looking for a way to get out. How long do you think he swims?
I forgot. I know the
It's like
study.
6 minutes, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think it's 6 minutes, and then he just floats there in despair. And then I think what happens, though, is if they take him out and they put him back in, he only swims for like 2 minutes and says, screw it. Like he learns helplessness. He stops doing the 6 minutes. And if they do the opposite, if he's swimming around for like 5.5 minutes and then they put a little way for him to get out and he gets out, I think he becomes more resilient.
Yeah, that's the way I remember is that if they, you swim around for 5 minutes and then you find a way out or you find a platform to rest on.
Yeah.
Then the next time they're in, they'll swim for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Looking for that platform.
Yep.
Whereas the other rat will literally die in,
right.
In 4 minutes or whatever it is. They're like, there's nothing here. There's nothing for me.
They're like, I've been here before. Yeah.
And the one that had
do they drown or do they just float there?
I think drown. I was reading.
You're right.
Cruel studies.
You're doing all the cruel.
But I think, it's showing that they'll literally like die while the one that has some hope is still going.
Right.
You.
Yeah. So I think we have to be careful with that in our training, how we interpret our events. Right. We don't want to learn to be helpless.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that applies in any position in jiu-jitsu. And again, it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, right? Learned helplessness. Right. I mean, they weren't talking about jiu-jitsu when they had these rats in the barrel. They were talking about all different aspects. They did have little gis on them. Was it gi or no gi?
It was gi.
I thought it was
definitely gi.
I thought it was just rash.
Yeah,
guard.
Little belts. Yeah.
But they, the idea of learned helplessness is a universal trait, right? Like you're just like, when it doesn't matter what I do, I can't get out of this situation, and that's something always to be fought against, right? In any situation. Yeah. And so for us, for jiu-jitsu, yeah, but it's hard too. You know what I mean? It's hard. Like I said, you have to keep reminding yourself. That's what we were saying before. I forget to do these mantras and I forget to keep a positive attitude and, so I guess this is one more reminder. This podcast.
Definitely. And the T-shirts. I put all those mantras on the T-shirts. That's good too.
Right. I should get a T-shirt. I'll be reading it while someone's smashing one into me.
Yeah, I do that all the time, Dan. I'll be in some weird position and I'll say, what do I tell people to do here? And then I'll remember what I tell somebody else and tell myself, and then I get out or whatever, figure it out.
Right. And it's the same with anything. There's no magic bullet. There's people I'm not going to pass their guard no matter what I tell them. I tell myself, but because you brought up the point on that little clip that someone said to you, yeah, but even if, I can't pass their guard, but the idea is keep that it maximizes your potential, right?
Exactly.
To keep the right attitude toward it. It's not going to hurt you.
It's not going to hurt you. Right. And I think you're right. There is philosophically a downside to too much resilience. If I keep trying to do something, if I keep trying to get in the NBA, there's a point where it's absurd and I'm actually hurting myself and wasting my life perhaps, right?
Right. I just had this flash image of me getting absolutely smashed by someone and being like, I'm in control. as I'm like mashed into the mat, like, I'm in control. But, I think, again, it's always, I see all the time for me in jiu-jitsu where I'll feel like that game of inches and seconds, where I'll be like, oh, wait, I know what I should do. And then it's too late.
Too late. Yeah.
As I think, oh, I should get on my, I'm flattened, I should grab his, he moved his hand,
yeah.
So any of these things that sort of just keep you more energized, keep you more optimistic, I think could have a big effect.
Definitely, because, what you're focused on, your attention is so critical, and it's easy for it to trail off into like a negative sort of philosophy.
Well, I'm probably the most negative person in the gym, like the most pessimistic. So, because I said it, for me, people will if someone compliments me on something, it like rolls right off me, like it rolls right off my shoulder. It's like the opposite of what you should be doing. Like, so like, oh, you felt good with that. I'll be like, oh, please, and then bad rolls.
Don't patronize me.
Yeah, exactly. And then bad rolls, I'm like, oh, I sucked,
That's good. You're setting yourself up to never be happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
So in that way, that's my strategy to never feel happy.
Let me ask you, do you think that's the approach you apply to jiu-jitsu? I don't think you do that for your whole life, right?
No.
Is it just jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, maybe something else, but
definitely
like
jiu-jitsu. Huh. That's
I don't know how that evolved. I got to shake it off.
You got to shake that off.
I'll give you one example that just in the last week I've been doing. Like I sort of, and on this podcast I've said, the way I'm enjoying jiu-jitsu is to just have fun, and just sort of not, take it all kind of light and easy and have fun. And that did work, and I'm not turning my back on that. But I do think that I don't perform as well thinking that way because you're not competing. You're just having fun, right? So I started in the last week being like, maybe I'll start, maybe not every roll, but now and again, just ramping it up and get a little competition in the roll and go a little harder, because then that's when you're really going. That's when it's too easy to just say, I'm just having fun. And then, oh, someone tapped me. It doesn't matter. And, and you're just sort of.
Then you're like, why am I here? I mean.
Yeah, there's not
be
really.
Home watching Netflix.
Yeah, there's not really a goal. And I'm definitely not performing as well.
Well, Dan, I have a couple things that I want to say in regards to that. John Danaher just did a post on Instagram, I think, or whatever, where he said, I think this is a little much, but he said 80 to 90% of your training should be with somebody that you're significantly better than. And that's really the way for you to develop your offense. And I've known that for a long time because, when I first started, I had that kind of mentality of I was just going to smash somebody from side control, hold on to them for dear life. And my game wasn't developing that much at blue belt and maybe purple belt. But then I spent a significant amount of time training with this one guy in particular who was less experienced than me, a little smaller, and physically much weaker. And then that's how I learned to have a guard. I learned to do all this different stuff with him. And I wasn't bullying him and beating him up. But if I didn't train with that guy, I would not have developed the way I developed.
Right. And if someone was better, they would have just passed your guard and you would have.
Yeah, I would have tried to triangle somebody. that I was smashing all the time on top and side control, then they would have just smashed me on side control, and I would have spent 80% of my roll on the bottom of somebody's side control learning nothing. This way I got to good repetitions in a meaningful new positions and learned a lot.
Right. I think it's
then you can have fun when you're that much better than somebody. You can relax a little bit. You can have fun. But if somebody's smashing you, how can you make that fun? It's not possible, right? And you got to have deliberate intent in your training in order to get better and to really enjoy it, I think. So I would suggest that to you and anybody else. Spend that time with somebody that you are, and it takes a while to get there. You got to become at least a blue belt probably before you can do that, and then find somebody who's a good training match for you that way. And then you there's a trade-off. You can help them give them suggestions and tips to help them improve their game. But I think that is key. Like I could never do the so-called flow wrestling where you and I let you sweep me and then you let me sweep you. That never made any sense to me. I didn't understand that. I'm like, why would I let somebody sweep me? Aren't I reinforcing bad habits? It doesn't make sense. But if you go with somebody you're significantly better than, then you control the tempo so you can make it a flow roll.
Right, then you say, right, I will let him
You can sweep them, you can mount them, and then you can let them escape into your close guard, and then you put a triangle on them, maybe you tap them, maybe you let them pass, and then, you know what I mean?
Right.
Then it's a really effective flow roll. And so I would suggest definitely doing a lot of that. I don't know if 80-90% is possible, but I remember even Patric Barbieri from back in the day. He was better than everybody, and he just kept getting better. And I think that's what it was. He was just always developing his game because he was better than everybody. You know what I mean? He had that, for whatever reason,
he could practice things.
Yeah.
Well, you can't practice things if you can't do them. If they fail every time you try it.
Right. Then, of course, if you're getting ready for competition, you got to put a lot of hours in where you're going pretty hard against people at your level. So you develop that timing and that speed that you were talking about. Like, there's another metaphor I use about Jiu Jitsu. It's a little bit like musical chairs. When the music stops, there's one spot, there's one chair, and you got to beat the other person to the spot. And if you don't beat them to the spot, like you said, even if you know what to do, it's too late now. You didn't get on your side. Now you can't. So.
Right.
So you got to have that for competition, but for development, you don't really need that. And the other thing, you're talking about having fun in the gym. Sometimes I just try to focus on learning, and it's different than just competing and doing well. It's like, what insight can I get? What tiny little thing can I leave? We're here today and say, you know what? I realized if I just put my elbow 3 inches higher here, I could defend off that submission attempt or something. So then I leave the gym feeling fulfilled because I learned something. And I think that's a very successful approach, too. Then I feel good, because you don't want to – it's not so much about having fun. Of course you want to have fun. But if you have a sense of fulfillment, it's easy to have fun after that because you just feel good, right? Like that was a good investment of your time. You made some progress. Because that's part of feeling fulfilled is having a sense of progress. If you just go in there and fart around and, quote-unquote, have fun and don't feel like you made any progress – you're not going to do that for very long, right? That's going to get old. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I still think there was a time like I was in a mindset where I wanted to just go in and have fun. Like I was coming back. Yeah. I didn't want to immediately launch into like I need to make improvements and make. I was like
right. You didn't want to put too much pressure on yourself.
Right. I wanted to come in sort of low pressure, get used to it. But what I'm finding is then you have to change. So that might be another thing is any mindset and anything we give for advice here, maybe it changes. Like
I think everything has a plus minus to it. And
yeah.
There's two sides to everything. We talked a lot in this podcast about the ego trap where if I put you on a pedestal too much, if you feel overvalued, then you're going to retreat from competition. That's going to make you feel awkward. But if I make you feel undervalued, that could screw you up as well. Because sometimes we're looking to people because we're trying to gauge how confident we should be. So I have this guy I'm going to compete with, and I look at you, and I'm like, so what do you think? And if you're like, yeah, I think you're going to get smashed, then maybe that'll deteriorate my performance, It's not that simple. So we need to sort of support and challenge each other in the right way depending on the context,
Right.
and the situation.
Right, and the weights for each of those can change based on where someone is.
It's going to change
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
time. Yeah,
yeah.
it's completely contextual, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm looking to you for a little confidence, and I need you to be like, yeah, man, you could do this. And other times, maybe looking at you and I need more of a challenge from you, and you're like, yeah, the guy looks pretty tough. I don't know, maybe you can do it. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I could do it. And I get fired up a little bit. You know what I mean? So, but it's very contextual. I heard that I talk about on every podcast, probably Doug Lisle from Beat Your Jeans podcast. He was saying how you can, if you challenge somebody in a joking way, you can maybe maintain your relationship, but still stimulate them to want to compete. You know what I mean? So in other words, if you're like, yeah, I'm going to have a match with this guy, what do you think? And I went, I don't know, but Dad, I think he's going to kick your ass. And if I did it in a joking way, then it might not hurt the relationship, but it would still be like, what?
Yeah.
And it would still instigate you to go out and really prove me wrong. So I thought that was clever. I got to use that sometime. So I don't know. Maybe we should wrap it up here, Dan. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a pure jiu-jitsu episode.
Unbelievable. We were going to talk hair transplant and head shaving, but we got sidetracked.
By jiu-jitsu.
We'll get at that next podcast.
Next podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks again, man. Another brilliant podcast. You're awesome as usual. So everyone, we got to mention Pat Browning and Greg Lewin for no particular reason. And folks, please share this podcast. Tell your friends about it. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.